Hi, and welcome to LNA Does Audio Stuff. Hey, this is episode 3 of our course, drum making course, drum writing course, where you learn the basics on how to make beats as a non-drummer. This lesson is about how to humanize our drum beats when they sound too robotic, too mechanic, too electronic. I'm going to show you 4 different tips for that. But before this, we're going to go into our interview with our Sara Leigh Shaw, an amazing drummer who gave a lovely interview for this series. Let's see what kind of tips she gives us today.
Well, me personally, as a drummer, I definitely have my go-to places that I do anyway, and I'm very much like a groove-based drummer, and then I just like to do some like mad fills and stuff. So that's the kind of style that I play, and my style sort of changed over the years, like since like there's more electronics in live playing. So like with the sort of like Roland sample pad and stuff like that, like that actually makes you as a drummer play more like in a linear style. So I really heavily relied on the hi-hat for keeping my time, and that kind of restricts you in a way. But if you're playing with the sort of the Roland pad, everything is a bit more like this and a bit more broken up. So that actually helps me become a better drummer, like playing along to the click and like playing different rhythms that I wouldn't normally do if I'm sort of staying at a drum kit. So I think it's just like having the bravery to put things where they wouldn't necessarily be. So like put a snare hit where it wouldn't necessarily be. Like I love putting the snare on 2 and 4. Like I'm that kind of drummer, like gah. But I think if you can just sort of shift it or like do something that's a bit kind of like quirky, but obviously if it's got a nice feel to it, and it can sound a bit off kilter and a bit different, but it still grooves. But I mean, the main thing for me about groove is making sure that everything sort of stays in the same feel throughout the whole song. I mean, that's what your job is as a drummer. Like you have to play whatever the rhythm is, but keep it maintained through the song in the same feel without it sort of going a bit, or if I was working with an artist and they recorded something, or they'd put a snare hit where I wouldn't normally play it, I'd be like, oh, why would we put the snare hit there? It's going to take me ages to learn that. You know what I mean? But that's what's giving the music a point of difference, and that's what is giving the music a sense of difference. And it might not feel natural for a drummer to play, but that's because we've learned, especially in Western music, it's like for like forever. So like putting these like little bits in, like it's good to keep you on your toes as a drummer, because it's just like, oh well, it doesn't have to be like that. And then maybe in the choruses you can move away from the randomization and turn it into something that's a bit more sort of like a more recognizable rhythm, or something that is more connecting. So I think just little twists like that, or maybe just adding one in like every few bars, like a little like, oh, I wasn't expecting that, but that's kind of cool. So for me, the snare is always like what we call the backbeat. It always gives it kind of, how can I say it, kind of, in a good groove, it kind of pulls everything back. It just makes everything feel good. For me, that's what the snare does. So like, I've been told if you want to have a good groove, the kick drum has to be ever so slightly ahead of the beat, ever so slightly, and the snare drum ever so slightly after the beat. You know what I mean? And that produces like something called the pocket that makes a really nice groove and makes the music feel really good. So for me, I mean, I'm sure the snare works with other instruments, but it's kind of something that's making the music feel good. And then
that's what we want.
And the hi-hats is like working with the sort of rhythm. So it's like doing something with the guitars, perhaps. That's how I see a basic groove in its more raw sense, the kick, snare, and hi-hats. I found it really difficult to read music and rhythm before I became a drummer. I played clarinet before, and then when I became a drummer, I actually understood rhythm, and it's just because it's like 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. sounds really sort of straightforward, but it really helps me sort of divide it up. So when I do MIDI on the grid, I can see. I'm quite a visual learner in that sense. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. The grid can really help you shift something, just maybe shift it over just a quaver or a semi-quaver, and that just gives it a bit of difference that might not be heard before. And I think generally, I mean, the general rule, if you're going to be sort of like very pure about it, is that you should tune to the song that you're recording. So like the toms should be recorded to the key that you're recorded in, like as a general rule. But personally, like that's not always, like we haven't always done that, and like historically, I know I've worked in some studios before and the engineers have been so good, they could have just like tuned it to the track and I've not even been aware of it. But as a rule, and especially with MIDI drums, you know, I've been told, you know, make sure your drums are tuned to the key of the song. So, but me personally, I don't always do that.
You don't always find that it has a massive difference then? Do you think it's like overhyped situation, or do you think it actually has the importance that people talk about it?
I mean, I kind of make sure that sort of like, so when I'm using my drum kit, so my drum kit's just here. That's the kind of setup I use. It's just snare, rack, floor. So I make sure my rack and my floor tom are tuned sort of like dum 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 dum. And I actually find personally that a drum has its own note. Like, yeah. I just feel like they just naturally sound best at their own note. So I try and tune them to their own note, and I find that each drum kit is different. This is quite an old kit, and the sizes are quite big and it's quite loud. And I find that tuning that kit quite low sounds good for it, but it doesn't always work for every kind of music, but it's very good for rock music. So whereas other kits, maybe like the sizes are a bit smaller and they work with different kinds of skins, and I still tune them to the same interval, but I don't I wouldn't maybe tune them as low, because the drum is telling me the drum sounds good when it's tuned a bit higher. Does that make sense? So yeah, I just kind of go with the drum set rather than trying to make the drum set be a certain note. And also with drums, I learned recently, I did an album session, and I don't use light sticks, but I don't use really heavy ones. They're kind of like in the middle. And the engineer was like, you need to use these sticks, and they were really heavy, and I was like, oh my god, like I can't believe I'm going to have to do the takes with these really heavy sticks. But I was like, why should I use them? And he was basically saying, you need to use them because they're going to make the drums resonate so well in this room, that, you know, because drums are supposed to sing, they're supposed to be an instrument that kind of is like, ooh. And if you're in the right room with the right mics, like, you'll just get like such a good sound. And I think, you know, I don't know, I see drums as a bit of an animalistic kind of like instrument, and the drums themselves are animals, like you're hitting something that is quite visceral. So yeah, he was like, hit it in the situation, hit with a heavier stick. So that week I was like doing all this drumming. Some of it was quite fast, but it was a new experience. I really enjoyed it. So
it worked then.
It really worked. It's like, it was almost like with the lighter sticks, it would have just been sound like I was just tapping it really in a really like bad way. But like with the loud sticks, like they just sung in a way that sounded just so much better. If I'm using MIDI, I've got my electronic drums which I'll use, and I can program in the MIDI, so to speak, playing the drums with my electronic kit, so it'll naturally pick up the velocities as they would be. But sometimes I'm just going to like program in a beat on the grid and just go straight for it. A lot of the time, like, I just put my velocities right to the top because I just want the drums to be like rah. But I've been learning to like not do that as much anymore, because I'm just like, no, there needs to be room for other sounds coming through. I think I think it's a case of just like getting the velocity stick or whatever it's called and like dragging it up and down and listening to how it sounds, because I think you can just hear it and you can pick what sounds great. And I think it doesn't have to be always like so intense, because like a nice soft touch drum could just work just as well, and that might sing a little bit more sometimes if something's hitting so hard, it's just a bit, yeah. Whereas a sort of like a softer touch might have like a bit more of a resonance coming off it.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? And I think, yeah, learning velocity is good if you want to put ghost notes or something, which is the sort of like little mini notes that you hear between the main groove, which I mean, that is a massive amount of programming if you're programming it in by hand, but you know, for some people who it might be really nice for their music too. So, because I think sometimes doing it on a piano is easy. It's kind of easier too, because the buttons aren't as hard. And I sometimes program my drums on a piano. Yeah, I'd say most producers must know a bit of like keyboard or something. So, and you can get a bit more control on the velocity that way as well, I think, rather than just doing it that way.
Okay, tip number 1 is tuning. Okay, so we have a house beat here that sounds like this. And we also have a bass line that sounds like this. Okay, and that's in A, so A major. And now we need to make sure that these two sound good together. So together, without tuning, it sounds like this. Sounds alright, but again, it could sound better if we just actually make sure that everything is on tune. Especially tom sounds have a lot of tone to them. If we just go to the kit and just solo the toms, so we have high tom and we also have a mid tom. So do 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 do, it has clear tones on them. You can see that in these instruments, this 909 core kit, you actually have a tune option here. But depending on a kit, you might have a simpler here, and in there you need to go to the controls. And there you have a transpose or detune options. In this kit example, it has this beautiful tune control macro already set up, so we can do it here. Obviously, we can use it our hearing. We can click the sound that we want to tune, if we wish, or we can use a keyboard and look for A, do. So example, the lower one. Do. Sounds about A. But it sounds a little bit flat. For the bass, there's actually a really fun way to do this. You can also add a drum bus here that also has this low end section. So what that is doing is not tuning the actual sound, this core sound, but it's adding this external signal to it that we can tune with the frequency. So this is really easy because we can actually, when we put this frequency up, you can see these notes going here on the lower, and we can actually go to A sharp, A. There we go. Now it's in A. And then if we put the decay down a little bit, it's not going to add too much of a decay to the sound. So now, doon, doon, now it's on A. So that will be definitely on tune, but obviously it will add that boominess to it. So that's a taste if you want to add that there. If you're not sure how to tune and where all the sounds are, you know, you can also add a tuner on the track. And quite often it gives you a pretty accurate, so now it's kind of shows it's kind of high F sharp, the sound. So if we take it up a little bit, Can I go small G? Now it says G. A little bit more guidance of where the sounds are. Let's have a listen. How it sounds now. At this moment, let's just give a big thank you to the sponsor of this series, DistroKid. One of their best features, which I absolutely love, is hyperfollow. And why is it called hyperfollow? Because as soon as you have uploaded your song, it actually gives you this link and you can access it, you can customize it, you can actually straight away start marketing your release, and you can start sharing this link to people. You can collect pre-saves on Spotify, and also it will automatically update once the song is out. So what that means is that this one link contains every single store that has the song in it, every single streaming platform that has the song on it. It's just basically this one-stop place for your music. DistroKid is also being very kind because they've given all my followers -7% off from their first membership. So if you're interested in DistroKid or you just want to check them out, go to the link down below. Start your journey. Thank you, DistroKid, so much for supporting my channel and for making sure that I can keep on posting tutorials for all my lovely followers. Okay, let's get back into the tutorial now. Okay, tip number 2 is groove pool. Groove pool is very important for the groove. So right now, if we look at this house track that we have here, there's not much else going on. It's quite straightforward, it's very electronic, and it's not really human yet. So that it will work with the bass a lot better, we can use groove pool. So let's open groove pool from the left corner here, left side. And now what we can do is use the transients of the bass track to customize the groove of this beat. I'm just going to make this a little bit shorter, this bass track. There we go. I'm just going to crop that. And now I'm just going to throw this bass clip into the groove pool. It's going to load it in. Voila. And now we have here bass A, 87 BPM. Now we have all these different options here, but obviously right now I can't really use them for anything. They're not really active. So how do I make them active? I'm going to go into the clip that I want to add the groove to. Then I'm going to go into here. It says signature, and on the right side of it, it says groove. From there, drop down menu, voila, we have bass A, 87 BPM. Select that, and now you can see the options are open. So we can actually now take the groove, baste it on 116, it's quite fast beat. So you can see there's the transient split very nicely to the 16 notes of the beat. So we can take the 16 notes, quantize it to that. Yes, let's put 80% accuracy, timing 100%, random, a little bit like this, and a little bit of velocity as well, not too much. If you're not sure what these mean, I have a whole video explaining every single feature in Groove Pool over here. The link is down below. Global amount, let's put a little bit more like that. Okay, so now I want to show you magic. When I go to the right here, to the right arrow, and press that, look at the MIDI clips now. They just switch their place a little bit. This is called swing. It's quite harsh right now. I put the quantize quite hard. So I'm just going to put these a little bit more to the left. So this is without the swing that we added with the Groove Pool. And here it is with the swing. So much better. Number 3 is, let's do swing manually. Here is the linear funk rhythm that we created in the first episode of this series. Okay, so with the kicks, let's try this out. We can bring them that they actually are a little bit faster than usual. They come a little bit faster, and the snares that they come a little bit slower like this. So now there is this gap between the grid and the note. Oh, what if we can do this other way around? Make the kicks a little bit lazier and snares come a little bit faster. There's already a definitely different nuance to it. Or maybe kicks on time, snares and hi-hats a little bit lazier. I kind of like that actually for these. And Tom's a little bit lazy as well. Obviously, we can do that so that some of them are closer and some of them are further away. So, you know, do them a little bit all separately so they're not all really doing the same thing like this. So, example, having that little bit further in there already gives that little bit of jump there. I definitely prefer if you kind of use a little bit more time and go through all the notes separately. You actually find a lot more human touch to it, and not everything is so quantized. Tip number 4 is ghost notes. Okay, so let's just go to the lo-fi hip hop rhythm that I did. Okay, so there's a couple type of ghost notes that we can do. We can add these little notes that are maybe a little bit shorter, like that. And we can also take the velocity down from them quite a lot. And also make sure, in this point, that the volume velocity is definitely up so that this will work. So is the velocity modulating the volume? And now we can add these to add swing to the groove. Already, if it's quite, it needs to be quite low in volume to actually have that it's not there, but it's there. Do you know what I mean? So that is nice there, and maybe another one here. On the snare, we can do the same thing. Make sure that the volume velocity is up, and then go to the clip and add, example, a short note like this. Actually, let's put it on the other side. That's kind of nice. Or we can add several. That's less of a ghost note, but that actually gives like it's almost like a ghost fill. But you get the gist here. Another way we can, of course, have example hi-hats, open hi-hats and close hi-hats. So if we put a open hi-hat behind a ghost hi-hat. So we already talked about this in the first video. So we have choke options. So if we're on a drum rack, we are here. And if we go open up from here, and also the I/O settings over here. There we go. We can see if the hi-hat open, yes, is choking the closed one. So it needs to be open, one, hi-hat close. So all the ones that have the same number will choke each other. So this means that we can play around with it a little bit. We can add these ghost notes here. Can you hear it? It's like a tiny little open hi-hat between this closed hi-hat and that closed hi-hat. And it's very different vibe than this open hi-hat here, because that is like, it's like on your face, but this one is just like a little, this is the gate So as soon as this opens up, this hi-hat can play. There we go. So that's already one way also to make it more human, but also make your beats a little bit more complex, that they're not just as that. Okay, thank you so much for watching. Hey, please remember to subscribe and hit the bell icon so that you will see definitely all the videos that are part of this series, but also all the future videos, so that you will see more when I post, because I have video coming every Sunday. Also, make sure to check out my Patreon. Here is my lovely Patreon family. In Patreon, we do weekly live streams, we do monthly masterclasses, I give feedback on tracks, we do challenges that has cool prizes. So there's a lot of fun stuff in there, and you can make new friends and meet like-minded people as well, which is nice. Hey, thank you so much for watching. Please come again. Next week, we have the last episode of this series. Woo! Okay, see you then.